Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we have another hot seat, which I have to say is a really good thing as I'm freezing from the air conditioning. But we have another one of our hot seats, and we have the perfect people to have in conversation. Now, admittedly, just before the break, I had received notification that we had to remove one of the chairs. We had originally 5 chairs because our one panelist who was going to join us was perfect for it. Mother Nature was supposed to join us. We had a chair set up, everything was perfect, and then she and I were having a little bit of a briefing call. And I said to her, this is what we've been talking about for the last 2 days. Quite honestly, this is what we've been talking about for the last 2.5 years, and probably the last 10 years before that. And she just stormed off, pun unintended. She's fed up. And she just said, honestly, are you still talking about this and you're not doing anything about it? I'm done. And she's getting fed up. And so she said, listen, I want you to use this hot seat and get people to start talking about what they are going to do, not what we should be doing in the future. What are we going to do now? Which is why we have the 3 perfect panelists to have exactly that conversation. I ask you all to please welcome, first of all, Michaella Rugwizangoga, the Chief Tourism Officer of Rwanda Development Board, one of the most heroic tourism institutions in the entire world. Michaella.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
We also have Keith Vincent, the Chief Executive Officer of Wilderness Safaris. Thank you for joining us, sir. And we have Hamish Keith, the Chief Executive Officer of Exo Travel. Thank you, sir, for joining us. He tried to get the questions out of me. I'm not going to give them. So, I have a question for you. We have about 40 minutes. We have to get to understand what is happening and how do we make more happen more rapidly. Tell me, though, first, why is Mother Nature so fed up? Michaella.
Wow. Well, I wonder if did you ask her specifically about Rwanda? Or did you ask her? No. I think we need to go back to her and say.
About the conversation about sustainability, about the elephant in the room who's getting equally tired.
Well, I think globally, of course, there is a need for action, more action, faster action. But if you may allow me to speak for the case of Rwanda and some of the measures that we've taken in order to, conserve our nature, sustain our environment. Sustainability has been at the core of the work we do for many, many years. Rwanda has been plastic-free now for more than 10 years. I think you've noticed that. When you came at the airport, it deserves an applause, yes. We don't allow any plastic bags in the country. We are moving to full electric vehicle in the next few years. It's a very deliberate policy. And when it comes to our national park, together with our partner here, Wilderness Safaris and other partners, we've put in place a strategy that is deliberately high-end and low volume. The reason being is that we do not want to put too much pressure on our different natural assets, whether it's about visiting the gorillas in the Volcano National Park or going to visit the Nyungwe National Park, which recently got UNESCO World Heritage Site, a process that we started in 2000 and which became, fructuous only this year. And so it shows you that it takes time. It takes time to put in place a clear sustainability strategy, it takes effort, and it takes consistency. And Rwanda has been about that. And if we can share more about it, that's why we're here, and that's why we welcome the World Global Summit here in Rwanda, the World Travel and Tourism Global Summit here in Rwanda.
And admittedly, to your point, and thank you for that, because Rwanda, again, is genuine. It's not simply because you're a gorgeous host. It is a case study for the world.
Yes.
The first time I came here, I think it was 1991, 92, I was on an overland trip and went to see the gorillas. I was back here about 5 years ago and went again. And the way in which RDB is so profoundly protective of the gorillas is brilliant. If you sneeze or you cough, you are not going to see them. If you're under a certain age, you're not going to see them. The respect you have for them is magnificent. And it was mentioned yesterday about the fact that, again, you do the, I think what Rosette mentioned about the border sharing, that if the gorillas decide to go to Uganda, great. You share the profits across because it's their home and they don't care about passports and visas. But your protectiveness is an enormous lesson to us all, to not fast forward these experiences. They are more than once in a lifetime, because it's amazing to see how you've moved that through.
And also, I think it's important to mention that we do that together with the communities. So it's the first protector of nature are the people who live, near the park, who work in the park. We've transformed former poachers into rangers. We give back 10% of our tourism revenue back to the community. And so the people see the impact, and they are part of this transformation exercise.
It's a beautiful community that you've created there. Keith, from your perspective, why do you think Mother Nature's just getting impatient with
I think the real elephant in the room is that for too long the tourism industry, the conservation tourism industry, has been on the defensive. And we try to defend an ever decreasing amount of land. You hear a lot of conversations around there used to be X number of elephants, there used to be X number of gorillas, the X number of lions, etc. So the land mass is under pressure. And in reality, the tourism industry and the conservation tourism industry needs to go on the offensive. The only way to achieve that is to real partner with governments and the community, to Michaella's point, okay? So if you rewind 10 years ago, the conversation was about creating employment. Today is how do we create wealth opportunity for the communities on the boundaries of these areas, and therefore you can expand the areas. So we've got to move as investors, and let's call it really conscious of what we do in the planet, is to what we call restore and restock. We've destroyed a lot of land in our history as mankind. So how do we move from us getting a piece of land and building a beautiful lodge with great experience, how do we move into the restore and restock part, which is obviously, it's a longer lead time. And obviously, we work very closely with the Rwandan government, and I can tell you they're the best in Africa, so that I can tell you. But it's how do we expand the areas under conservation whilst improving the economic benefits for the communities and the country itself. And it's also about, we saw figures over the last couple of days about what it means to the GDP. We have to be able to be self-sustaining. But investors also need to be prepared to invest into tomorrow. And it's what we're doing as a company now, is we're looking at land that's destroyed, and then to restore it and restock it with wildlife. And how do you do that? It's easy. It's just time. And it's actually about concrete steps. It's not about discussing. We don't need to discuss what do we need to do. We just need to take the first steps.
Absolutely.
And I think the success of protecting land is only if you get the communities to have the economic benefits where they become part of the custodians of that land for tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And that way we can regrow the forests. Some of you have been to our lodges here. When we built there wasn't a single tree on that piece of land. Now you can hardly see the lodge. We're very lucky in Rwanda where you plant something and it grows really quickly. But there's other areas which will take years. But we have to start on the journey. And I think, to me, it's actually that simple. We look at it like an African pot that's got 3 legs. One of them is community, one of them is conservation, and one of them is commerce. Because only with each of those pillars will you actually keep the pot standing up and succeed. So, I think it's right for the world to say, stop talking and actually do it. We're currently working with a project with the RDB right now on potentially 500 hectares of land to just reforest, to make more space for the gorillas, but also work out how do we make enough economic opportunity for the villages that are going to make way for that land to be reforested.
Indeed. And I think what's important about what you're saying as well is that that land is their home. That is the community's home, and it is for them to own it, not just economically, but spiritually. That is their home. And I think that goes to your point about creating that community relationship. Unless there is clear understanding of why is it good for them,
yes,
regardless of how good it is for us. And it links to the panel I had the blessing of moderating yesterday on communal good. It's exactly that. There has to be that trust and relationship, and there has to be accountability. And it's the accountability that's vital. And I like your comment about it's that simple. It can be that simple. But just start. You and I had a conversation in the green room because you were rather confused as to why something that James mentioned in the earlier session has not come up more. Please explain your comment, why you said it.
Yes, I was very pleased to hear James talk about his BCorp certification, but I was a bit surprised that nobody else had mentioned that over the last 2 days, because BCorp is something that we've decided to become part of, and we've spent the last year.
30 seconds. Can you explain what BCorp is?
So BCorp is an organisation that is will audit and certify and ensure that you meet your goals of doing business for good. So BCorp is really about making sure that business is for good. They are an NGO, but we're obviously a for-profit business, and we decided to put the only way that we could really be able to run our business in a sustainable way was to put sustainability into the centre of what we do. And we made a very intentional decision to do that and to make sure that our business had a positive impact. And the only way you can be sure that you're having a positive impact is if you can measure it. And we could see that BCorp was the best way to help us measure the impact that we could have, not only on the environment, but also on society. So we engaged with BCorp. It's a very rigorous process. We spent a year running through that, and I'm very pleased to say that we've just been, I've just found out that we've been certified as a BCorp organisation.
And you make an important point, because it is very rigorous. It's an intense process, but it means that you are investing in being held accountable,
right,
which says something, again, from an ethical point of view. So if we take all of the possibility, we take all of the frustration, and we bring it back again to Rwanda, which is a country of hope. It is a country that is built on hope. There is huge reason for hopefulness in the heart of Mother Nature because of what you are doing. What can we learn from you in terms of addressing the elephants in the room? How do we tame the elephant so that we can say, Michaella left us with this message, it's that simple, this is how we need to start. Madam.
Yeah, thanks. I think we have a few best practices to share. It can be useful to others, and that is for others to decide. But in the past 29 years, we've been very deliberate at protecting our natural assets. So if you look at the population of mountain gorilla, it has increased by 35%. And today we have a good problem, which we are addressing with our different partners. And that problem is that the initial size of the park is no longer enough, and we have to expand. Expanding the park means reforesting. It means moving population. It means compensating them for the land that they had, but also moving them in places where they can still have proper living. And so in doing that, the government of Rwanda is building what we call green villages, which are sustainable villages. And it means you don't just move people somewhere else, you move them somewhere that is also sustainably built with clean energy and so on. And so I think that's one lesson that we can share. Within our cities, and Kigali is one example, we are restoring former marshlands into green parks. One of the examples is the Nyandungu Eco Park, which I dearly invite you to visit during your time in Kigali, and we'll have another 4 of such in the near future. No plastic. I think when the government of Rwanda put that measure in place, we were all wondering, how are we going to manage? We need our plastic bags. Today, we don't even remember what is a plastic bag anymore when we are shopping in Kigali. And going clean in transportation. Before being Chief Tourism Officer, I was CEO with Volkswagen Mobility Solutions. We brought the first electric vehicle in Rwanda. And started working on the very early stage of the first electric mobility policy and so on. Today, it's normal to see an electric vehicle in Rwanda. It's been only what, 5 years since 2018. And so in a very short time, you have electric truck, you will soon have electric buses for the whole city of Kigali. Personal vehicle are a norm. So I think those are some of the lessons that we can see and take on from Rwanda.
Your comment I enjoyed very much when you were saying, but how are we going to adjust? We've all seen how if we have to adjust because Mother Nature says stop, we adjust. Which means these are not just about changes, these are interventions that need to take place. And it's a mandate that needs to come by implication from the top. But Keith, I have a question for you. Is this all about, again, creating that genuine relationship of trust with the local communities? What if they're just not interested?
100%. It's a three-way partnership. It's government who are the enablers, okay? And I'll give you a couple of examples, and one in particular in Rwanda. You need government to enable private investment, but you need the support of the community. The first lesson that we should all learn, and we've learned it over years, it's actually our 40th birthday today as a company. So from that perspective, having said that, we 4 years ago, with the Rwandan Development Board, signed a lease on a small little piece of national park called Gishwati, and we paid the government $1 a year, and we took over managing this. It's a small park, it's 1,800 hectares, but there are 60 chimpanzees on that piece of forest. So protecting that piece of forest is protecting the livelihood of those 60 chimpanzees. So in partnership, we have now been habituating those chimpanzees. We'll be ready to build a lodge next year. It's taken us 4 years to build the experience that a customer will appreciate. But it started off as a partnership between ourselves and the Rwandan Development Board. At that same time, we were immediately employing people from the local villages who were actually habituating the chimpanzees. So you're building that trust, you're building that relationship. You're creating a little bit of employment, but once we built the lodge, we'll create, then it's an economic benefit from the permits, from the chimpanzees, employment, but there's also from the micro industries, from let's call it vegetable growing, where we can buy all of our vegetables right next door. We don't need to come to town to do it.
Yes.
And so if you take, there's a perfect example of government, private enterprise, and communities. And the second example I want to use, and this is where we have a responsibility as private investors in conservation. Look at what the recent vote in Ecuador, in the Amazon, by the people of Ecuador to stop oil drilling in the rainforest. Yes. Now, we have to race in to replace quickly their revenue earnings from another form of land usage if we're going to protect that forest, or eventually it will go back to drilling oil in the forest. So there's two examples where you've got the indigenous tribes in the Amazon who voted to stop oil drilling, but if we don't replace their income generation opportunity quickly, we will eventually lose that forest. I mean, so there's two really good live examples.
Absolutely.
And yeah, sure, it's time and effort and a little bit of money, but
Indeed.
That's actually doing it. That's why I say it's actually that simple.
And I think as well, to your point, that if we're going to take something away, immediately give something back. And one of the fascinating things about Mother Nature, she has an army of over 1 billion people that are being now holding us as an industry accountable. They're called travelers. Yeah. It's the travelers who are actually saying, I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I want to be able to do good. From a traveler perspective, Hamish, what are you sensing, what are you feeling, what are you seeing around the accountability that travelers are now saying, you need to prove you're delivering?
Right, and we know, we know that our travellers want to travel more sustainability. So it's absolutely a no-brainer for us. It's the right business move for us to make sure that sustainability is a core component of our business. And that's demand-driven. And then you have to work with the destination. So we're a destination management company in 11 countries across Asia, as far east as Japan and as far west as Saudi Arabia now. And we started in Southeast Asia. So the journey through for Southeast Asia, which in many ways is some parts are very much a mass tourism, and being able to educate the destination and to be able to introduce a different way of traveling, because that's what we're seeing that our client is asking for. That's what they want. And we got lots of examples about how that can change. I mean, a good one in Thailand, for example. 10 years ago, I was speaking at a conference, and I announced that we were no longer going to offer elephant riding at all. Yes. And the next day, in the local newspaper, the TTR said, EXO CEO drops bombshell, boycotts all elephant camps in Thailand. Okay, which wasn't exactly what I said, but they got the point. And at that point, all the basically elephant camps in Thailand were offering elephant riding as their primary income from tourism. And over the last 10 years, there's been a massive shift, which is demand-driven, but is also now understood by the destination that our visitors are much more interested in observing and not interacting with elephants. And those camp owners, the ones that wouldn't change, have now gone out of business, and new people have come in, but the elephants are still there because elephants last 70 years, right? So now the tourism infrastructure has changed, so we've got observing elephants, and the big win out of it for the people in the destination is they're earning more money from having tourists observe elephants in the wild than they were from having tourists riding elephants. So that's a really good example of a win-win.
And I think that's where, again, when you're saying about the three-legged stool and keeping that in balance, what you've done here, again, is beautiful in terms of how you're connecting the SMEs. So I remember when we were doing the Gorilla Trek 5 years ago, there's that brilliant food stop, the restaurant stop on their way up. That whole strip has been activated because of the tourists stopping to have lunch, to have a meal, whatever. And Debbie was very good in this morning commenting on her beautiful bracelet and how after the Gorilla Trek she went and she bought some jewelry from the local villages. Travelers want to see this. Knowing that we've got a shortness of time, but we've got such richness to share. Firstly, a question to you, Michaella. You have the experience, you have the wisdom, you have the patience, but you also have the clarity of what it takes. One of the beauties of this community is the opportunity to come together and learn, and really learn. Are you prepared to put yourself forward as a mentor for anyone who is wanting to be able to just tell us how to take that first step?
Of course. We definitely take that opportunity. I think it's also very fitting with the theme of this forum, building bridges to a sustainable future. The reason why we are hosting this forum is for us to build, bridges, to build a connection that are long-lasting and do better and do more every day. Yeah, thanks.
Brilliant. And I think as well that it's any bridges are possible as long as we start building. Yes. And just a little, sorry.
If you may, I want to take this opportunity as well. We talk a lot about the Volcano National Park, we talk a lot about the gorillas, but Rwanda has other parks, so the Akagera Park with the Big Five, Nyungwe National Park, which we mentioned, and Kishwati Mukura, where we're working with wilderness. But beyond that, we do have incredible opportunities for wellness tourism. We have hot spring sites, adventure tourism around the Kivu Belt, which are all ready for great investment as well. And I think that's a message that we've been putting across different rooms here. And if there is any opportunity, any interest, we would like to continue this conversation after the panel.
And interestingly as well, because I'm sure, and this will bring it back to you, Keith, that people being able to support conservation, to support the protection of these incredible God-given natural assets, need not actually get involved in the hardware. The software is also possible. So for instance, the Gorilla Doctors, which is about a outstanding organization, which we went to visit when we were here.
And The museum with Ellen DeGeneres, so the nice interactive site that we have where people can virtually experience a visit. And we've done that with Ellen DeGeneres, so there's a lot of different opportunities.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's helping keep that front line. So Keith, from your perspective, when you look at people, just as you say, take that first step, do something, start, and then keep moving. If one is going to want to say, great, we need to start focusing on this, and there's already action on the ground, scaling up impact, what have you found is the best way to really start making a difference?
So I think from a point of view is like I say, the first thing is to get the attitude of stop defending and go on the offensive. Okay, the customer is demanding accountability. The generation of our employees are demanding accountability. So the pressure is from both sides of the equation. I don't call it, pressure is the wrong word, but it's a case of that's going to drive the enthusiasm. So from that perspective, that's really encouraging because you're getting pushed to do better every day.
Yes.
And that leads to action. And if you take the youth of today, the planet is at the very forefront of their mind. Those are our future customers. Those are our future leaders in the country. Those are our future business entrepreneurs in any country that you might operate in. So actually enabling is actually the key part here. You know, the technology from solar to sewage, etc., is just getting better and better every day. So there's no excuse not to be as carbon neutral as you physically can. I mean, if you take, right now we look after 2.5 million hectares of land that's paid for completely by tourism. It creates thousands of jobs, but the ancillary employment and the contribution to the country's GDP is there. And it's so easy to grow. Rwanda is so easy because you've got a government that enables. And we need governments around the world. It doesn't matter what continent you're on to be more enabling, where this can actually happen at speed.
Yes.
So, as long as you've got an enabling environment, this can happen quickly. And Rwanda is proof. The success of Rwanda in the tourism industry has really been in the last 8 to 9 years. That's a very, very short period of time to get to where it is,
and I think
simply because of being enabled.
But enabling, but also prioritization is absolutely critical. And I think this is where, it was exactly what Paul Griffiths said yesterday. He doesn't want to have to turn to his children and say, I chose to do nothing. And that was a really powerful statement. We have exactly 1.5 minutes left, which means 30 seconds each. Next year, when we come back together for the WTTC Summit, wherever we are in the world, what do you hope to be a legacy of this summit in terms of really mobilizing this community to start to do something? 30 seconds sharp. Keith.
To me, it's really simple. How do we double the land under the influence of conservation?
Brilliant. Michaella.
Is to see more nature positive policies across the different governments who are participating in this conference. And number 2, to see more African countries join the membership of the WTTC.
Brilliant.
For me, it's collaboration and cooperation. I would like to see governments, particularly between Asia and Africa, working together more, and companies like ourselves being able to work together more to learn from each other. Because I think if we can share more, we're going to learn more and we're going to do better together.
And that's why having the 3 of you here is perfect, because it does seem that simple as long as we make it a priority and we create no excuses for doing it. So for that, Mother Nature thanks you, and I ask, ladies and gentlemen, please thank our wonderful hot seat panelists.